Hey folks, Gary here. Happy Wednesday to you. Hey Cole? Yeah, Cole. Cole wishes you a happy Wednesday too. And man, it is beautiful outside. I don't know where you are. We're in southern Saskatchewan and man, it's like spring out there more than December, which is pretty awesome. Hey, today we're looking at Lamentations chapter 3, verses 18 down to 24. I think that's right. I'll check it later. 18 down to 24. And it's talking about what you do when things are really, really bad. And so the backstory of this is the Assyrians have conquered Jerusalem. They have come and they have destroyed it. They've knocked down the city walls. They've done unspeakable things to people, killed people, all sorts of things. The Assyrians were pretty nasty. Think of Nineveh that Jonah went to visit. They're pretty nasty folks. So what does the prophet say? He says this: I tell myself, I am finished. I can't count on the Lord to do anything for me. Just thinking of my troubles and my lonely wandering makes me miserable. That's all I ever think about, and I am depressed. So that's the first part. Like if you're only, and it's understandable, right? Because man, it is horrible. Like what he's seeing is really, really horrible. So we can understand slipping into depression and just being consumed by what's going on around him. But then something happens, and this is what happens. Then I remembered something that fills me with hope. Now remember, hope is not wishing for things to be better. We talked about that on Sunday in the sermon. Hope is knowing that it's going to be better, right? It's knowing that God's going to do something. So it feels, then I remember something that fills me with hope. The Lord's kindness never fails. God's kindness never fails. So I'm in the midst of what's really horrible, but I also know God's kindness never fails. So one of these things is more important than the other, and it's God. God's more important. God's kindness never fails. So there must be kindness here somewhere. There must be something going on, right? And so he says, "Yeah, Lord, kindness never fails. If He had not been merciful, we would have been destroyed. The Lord can always be trusted to show mercy each morning. Deep in my heart, I say, the Lord is all that I need. I can depend on Him." And so the prophet is saying, you know what? This situation is horrible. We put ourselves in this situation. He understands that. He understands that it was the Jewish nation that put themselves in that spot. So he gets that. And it's a really hard spot. But he knows that God is really, really good. So he trusts God to work all these things out for good. We get to see that in Romans, right? God works all things out for good for those who love the Lord. He knows this. He knows, I know this is going to work out for good. Why? Because I know that God is inherently good. I know that God is inherently loving. So I know God is working this out for our good. And he trusts God in the midst of calamity. That's something we can grab onto too, right? We live in this world. There are going to be hard things. We're not sheltered from hard things at all. If anyone's selling you that, they're selling you a cult, okay? We are not sheltered from hard things at all. But we walk with a risen Savior who walks us through these things. And through these things, we see how incredibly good and merciful and kind He is as He takes care of us during the hard times. And our hope is in the fact that God doesn't leave us in that place. Our hope is in we know who He is, we know His character, and His character will always shine through, and we're going to be just fine.